Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
Yes, to test your tie rod, what you'd want to do is lift one of your front wheels up and grab it by the sides of the tire and kind of move it back and forth. If you feel play more than just the steering rack moving back and forth, then that's usually your tie rod is bad. Tools you'll need are jack and jack stands, 18 and 19 millimeter sockets, a ratchet with a pipe or a breaker bar for some extra leverage, 2 large adjustable wrenches, 8 and 18 millimeter wrenches, tie rod fork, and a torque wrench, as well as a large hammer. Start out by removing the front wheel, and if you don't have air tools like I do, you'll want to loosen the lug nuts with the wheel on the ground, then raise your vehicle with a jack, support it with a jack stand, and take the wheel off the rest of the way. Turn the wheels to make it easier to access the tie rod.
Okay, so before you disassemble the tie rod, what you want to do is you want to measure from a fixed point, which I'll choose the end of this boot right here, and then you want to measure to the middle of the tie rod. Okay, so again, you're measuring from a fixed point on the rack itself, which is this clip here, to the middle of the tie rod, and then you're going to set your new tie rod up that same length.
Okay, so here I just take a couple measurements just to make sure. Mine measures 11 3/8, but it's obviously going to be different for each vehicle.
11 3/8.
Okay, and now the tie rod is held in. There's a lock nut here. You need to grab that with a large adjustable wrench, then hold on to the tie rod itself in that slot and loosen that lock nut. Then there's a nut here that holds the stud on, and then you need to separate the tie rod from the steering knuckle.
Okay, fit one onto the nut here, this one onto the tie rod. Okay, just turn that nut about a quarter of a turn. Okay, this bolt is 18 millimeters. Take an easy way out.
And obviously, if you don't have an impact wrench, you'll want to use a breaker bar or a ratchet with a piece of pipe to give you some extra leverage.
Okay, now here you can use either a tie rod tool, although because there's limited clearance between the tie rod and the backing plate here, I'm actually going to use a fork. Okay, and you just basically drive this fork right in. It separates the tie rod and the steering knuckle.
Okay, and once you get the tie rod separated from the steering knuckle, you just turn it counterclockwise and get it off of the steering rack.
Okay, so new tie rod from 1AAuto. Comes with a bolt. Take the bolt off. Okay, I'm going to put it back on.
Okay, and it's kind of a reverse of the procedure. You thread the tie rod in, measure from the same point from the end. I chose the end of the boot on the rack. Make sure it measures the same distance. I take a couple measurements. Make sure you do not twist the shaft that comes out of the steering rack, because that also will change your alignment. And speaking of alignment, we do recommend that you have an alignment performed after you do a replacement like this. And once you have the measurement correct, then you can put the tie rod back into the steering knuckle and start the bolt on there. Okay, now that nut is a lock nut, so what you'll want to do, or what I'm doing here, is holding the stud of the tie rod with a 8mm wrench, and then using an 18mm wrench to tighten up the nut. Okay, so once I've gotten the 18mm wrench pretty tight, I grab another wrench, hook it on there, and just give it another good pull to tighten it up more before I torque it.
Okay, and then we'll torque this to 65 foot-pounds. Okay, now you want to put your wrench on the inner tie rod and get this locking nut back out against the outer tie rod. Okay. And then lock onto the outer tie rod and tighten the lock nut against it.
Okay, now you can turn your wheels back straight and then put your wheel and tire back on. Start the lug nuts by hand first, then just preliminarily tighten them. And with the car back on the ground, set your torque wrench to 90 to 95 foot-pounds and tighten the lug nuts using a star pattern as the order. We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.1aauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.